What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Dermy Wormy, and I'm coming at you with some more Star Wars news, Star Wars videos today, because the culture war around Disney Star Wars is back up, and it's funnier than ever because this time basically the veil has fallen down. I'm trying to think of the good word here. People are against Disney Star Wars. It is in vogue, honestly, to be against Disney as it is. But because of that, because of all their controversies, because of everything that's going on, everybody's looking at Star Wars. Everybody's looking at what's coming out and going like, you know what? You guys are pretty dumb. You know, the veil's been lifted with all their flops, everything they've been doing. And in regards to Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, you know, Chins, as I lovingly call her, we've been seeing more and more of what she has had to say. From she loves to make men uncomfortable, from she loves to put activism in front of her films first. By the way, this woman was chosen by Kathleen Kennedy herself, but again, she loves to put activism in her films, whether it's subtle or overt. She will always put activism over storytelling first. Those are her own words, by the way. I have videos on this from the past. You know, I pointed out, hey, they're screeching and shouting that we're just sexist for not wanting her in here and everything like that. That we're against having a female lead the way of Star Wars, yet they love to forget the fact that Kathleen Kennedy has been there ever since Disney formally purchased it, and she has been leading Lucasfilm ever since then, and you never ever saw them come out and say anything in regards to Patty Jenkins being hired and fired. You never heard them say a single thing about that simple fact. You know, I've been pointing it out left, right, and center. She has been there. She was there. She got hired on after Wonder Woman. She got fired after Wonder Woman. Huh. Interesting how that happens. You come over here. I did this thing where this guy blatantly calls us sexist. Just because we don't want an activist leading the way of Star Wars. I did where Young Turks and how this has been infecting within the culture war itself in regards to how they are trying to take it all and misrepresent what we are saying and everything like that, because, well, that's all they can do. They cannot actually tackle our arguments head on, because if they did, they know we would be correct. Because again, Chins over here might have some my awards and everything like that, but when it comes to her awards, all of her awards have been for activism in regards to documentaries on how women are treated over in Pakistan, and the only two fictional things that she has ever worked on in her career were 2 episodes of Miss Marvel that had to get recreated, and nobody watched Miss Marvel. That is the facts of the matter. Nobody watched it, and they had to get recreated. That goes to tell you how good she is at her job, and that goes to tell you that she is not fit for her job, okay? Now, why am I pointing this out? Why am I rehashing this yet again? Well, we have this individual here, an individual by the name of Roberto Blake, I believe is his name. He is an individual that helps people with their, I'm trying to think of their social media presence. He talks about IPs and brands and everything like this, and how you need to protect your brand and everything to help make it go. And he has this very long tweet, this extremely long tweet on Disney and Disney Star Wars right here. And a lot of this fundamentally breaks it down. I disagree with some points, but I'm going to give this guy tons of credit towards the end of this video because he is very kind, and I kind of like him. I think this guy is a cool dude, and I need to follow him real quick. But let's get into this, shall we? Here's the harsh truth about Star Wars. Disney is inconsistent and has damaged the brand and IP several times. Truth. Something one would think is impossible, and they have earned most of the criticism they are getting. I think the vast majority of the criticism, I think they have earned, okay? You know, but let's continue on because he does bring up valid points. They sidelined John Boyega in an act of sheer cowardice, while in every other way possible, virtue signaling their commitment to diversity. Yes, John Boyega was set up to be Finn, was being pointed in this direction of an awesome character, a former stormtrooper. Okay, a former stormtrooper breaking away, getting shown that he might be a Jedi, he might have force powers, he might be force sensitive, and then they turn him into a clown, while simultaneously screaming, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. If you're against this person, you're a racist. If you're against this person, you're a racist. But if you didn't like the sequel trilogy, you're racist, sexist, misogynistic, but ignore what we did to John Boyega. See that? See that? Yeah, they're cowards because they diminished him for China. Remember that. That is something that can't be ignored. Agreed. They foolishly launched the Skywalker saga and refused to treat it with the cursory respect of establishing a true story with a planned and definitive beginning, middle, and end. Yes, they have been out there on their own words. J.J. Abrams has been out there saying, yeah, we didn't have a plan. They have been on record saying they never had a plan in regards to the sequel trilogy. It was a joke the entire time, and had to be reactionary to fans and the internet instead of just delivering on a vision. 100% agreed. They had to be reactionary. You hear this term reactionary a lot, thrown at YouTubers, thrown at people against this, thrown at people that are pointing out her words and say, you're just reactionary, you're just reactionary, you're just reactionary. But they never once considered maybe the fans were correct. Maybe the fans were actually, complaining about something legitimately, and Disney was the reactionary one. You never saw that. You never saw anybody say that. No, it was Disney the entire time. It was the activists the entire time. They were being reactionary because instead of actually arguing in good faith, instead of actually taking the points head on, they had to go down there and start saying, you're just a bigot. You're just a bigot. That they can't actually argue in good faith. So they had to start calling you names and words. So much so that all those words no longer mean anything. Remember that being called a racist, sexist, and a bigot no longer means anything. They're just badges now, meaning that you tick somebody off justifiably. They stubbornly refused to make something that would honor George Lucas. Incorporate aspects of his treatment for a sequel trilogy, and having his blessing meant nothing to them. Legitimately, George Lucas had an outline for the sequel trilogy and they trashed that right away. They never even thought about looking at it. But then they want to go back and look at all the things George Lucas has done in the past that might have been bad and say, well, he fudged up, he messed up, why are you complaining about them? He messed up. Because it was no longer George Lucas. This was no longer George Lucas's work. This was Disney. The entire time it was Disney, and they refused to do Star Wars correctly. Executives and creatives went out of their way to make press blunders that anyone else representing any other brand would have been fired for. If you're reading this and you know that you would be fired for the same thing at your work, if you represent the brand, then that's hard to ignore or give them a pass on. It was unnecessary, served no purpose, and added no value. He ends up talking about it, but guess what? You know who he's talking about? All of Disney Star Wars, all their creatives, majority of their executives, how they all came out and purposely antagonized the fan base, how they attacked the fan base. He ends up bringing up two valid examples in the form of Rian Johnson and Pablo Hidalgo. For those of you who don't remember, Pablo Hidalgo went to Star Wars Theory, the largest Star Wars YouTuber out there. And when Star Wars Theory cried at seeing the return of Luke Skywalker, Mandalorian Season 2, and he gave a reason for it because Luke Skywalker was his biggest hero, and he never thought he would see Luke Skywalker in Luke Skywalker form again. All the criticisms behind, he just saw Luke Skywalker being Luke Skywalker again. Pablo Hidalgo laughed at him for crying. Remember that Pablo Hidalgo did that. That's a fireable offense in any regards. It was it was a series of self-inflicted wounds that bled them at the box office, and then they threw talent under the bus when they underperformed. Yeah. As things started going downhill, they started walking away. They started doing everything. What about the Marvels, for example? Marvel's a perfect example of this. Marvel sucked sucked across the board. Whether it's you can have all sorts of examples for why the Marvels failed. Disney didn't want to accept that it failed, so they threw the director under the bus. Man, that's interesting. Man, that's very progressive of you, hiring the first female person of color to direct a Marvel movie, and it failed. So we're throwing her under the bus because she couldn't do it, instead of accepting your own faults. That is bad leadership. Yeah, fundamentally, Disney has bad leadership across the board, whether it's Disney itself with Bob Iger, whether it's Lucasfilm with Kathleen Kennedy, or Marvel with Kevin Feige. I don't know. The dude at Marvel, you know, I've always said Kevin Feige, and now somebody said I'm saying it wrong, but that's why I'm doing that. You know, ever since, all their leadership is poor and unbelievable. We have been shown recently by Marvel star Iman Vellani that even when fans dislike a film, if the talent is humble enough to take criticism with grace and to show gratitude for those who did enjoy it, that support will still be there in the future. Legitimately, Iman Vellani plays a character I dislike. She's been in shows that I don't like. But Iman Vellani is a kind person. Iman Vellani's like, well, I'm sorry you guys didn't like it. It's okay. Hopefully next time. Hey, you know what? Hey, it's not the end of the world. If they didn't like my performance, they didn't like my performance. She's wonderful. She's gonna go far. I love Iman Vellani. She might play characters and have been in movies that I disagree with, I think are horrible. But she's a great actress, and I kind of like her. Just because she's done roles I don't like doesn't mean she's a bad person. That's all Rian Johnson and Pablo Hidalgo had to do. Gotta love that. He name drops them. You just gotta love it. It's why J.J. Abrams is not as heavily criticized when there is a fair argument that most of the problems in sequel trilogies begin with his mystery box. Legitimately. It all started with it's Disney as a whole, but J.J. Abrams is also to blame because he decided to do mystery box magic, the only thing he knows how to do, and it fell apart. J.J. Abrams, all of them from top to bottom, are to blame for this issue. Disney is fully capable of doing Star Wars well. I highly disagree with this point. Okay, I highly disagree with his point, and his examples I still disagree with. Rogue One succeeded because of member berries. Let's be really fair here. Rogue One was good because of member berries, especially due to that Darth Vader scene at the end. That's why it's fondly remembered, and that's why people like it, is because Darth Vader there at the very end. Rebels. Yeah, a lot of people like Rebels as a show, but in reality, Rebels did a lot of damage to the actual Star Wars universe as a whole. It began to put Thrawn down the path that he is at now, and that is a valid reason to think that Rebels is not a good show. Clone Wars. They didn't do Clone Wars. Disney Star Wars did not do Clone Wars. Clone Wars was done before Disney Star Wars actually picked it up. So they don't even get that right, okay? They do not own Clone Wars. That was all done before them. So that's bad. Mandalorian season 1, arguably season 2 started going downhill. And where is it now? Oh, it's in a bad spot. It's not good. Mandalorian has fallen off a cliff. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is something that we bring up later. Andor was in Star Wars. It was an okay show, but it wasn't Star Wars. They have shown that they know how to do Star Wars well across the medium and even across eras. No. When they don't do Star Wars well, it's because they think something is more important than doing Star Wars well and putting fans first. I could agree with that point. I could fundamentally agree with that point. They choose not to do Star Wars well because they want to do their own stuff. They want to do their own versions. And when Dave Filoni comes in, he wants to reference Star Wars instead of trying to create a good story, instead of trying to actually do stuff. He wants to put his own spin on everything and think that he's above the law because he was trained by George Lucas. So he knows where this goes. No, he doesn't. He doesn't. And by the way, Dave Filoni is one of the creative directors in Star Wars itself right now and has his fingers across everything. So even when something is bad, Dave Filoni is a part of it. It's when they think something is more important than writing the best story possible. Final, yeah. And I brought up Dave Filoni. The reason Dave Filoni tends to get Star Wars right more often than not is because he's a fan of every aspect that George Lucas created and is genuine awe of it. No. because Dave Filoni is also involved in a lot of these projects. Actually, the vast majority of these projects he does have a hand in. He's gonna have a hand in Ahsoka. He had a hand in Ahsoka. He had a hand in Rey. He's had a hand across the board. So no. Dave Filoni doesn't know how to do good Star Wars, but people think he does because he did Clone Wars, where he had tons of help from George Lucas. Now that he no longer has George Lucas, it's starting to show that he was a hack the whole time. And feels a sense of honor and privilege to be able to add to and build upon it. No, he wants to make it his own thing. That's the reality. He feels justified in doing that because, again, he was trained by George Lucas, but he didn't even want it. He wants to make it his own now. What seems is that he doesn't feel the need to correct something or one up anything. Yes, he does. I'm sorry. He legitimately does. It's the humility and realization this is something bigger than yourself, and setting vanity and ego aside to truly honor what came before and to add something we haven't seen. No, I disagree with you fundamentally, but all your other points are good. Star Wars has always been about many things, but one of them has been the cycle of history. It's why the legend of Star Wars doesn't begin in the future, but in the past. Yeah. Yes. Fundamentally, Star Wars is an eternal brand. It was a timeless brand. It began in the past. It began in the past, not the future. It began long ago in a galaxy far, far away. It is so beautiful and wonderful and transcends so much, and Disney led it down the path to get it's no more. That's why people criticize, and that's why people are complaining. It's why the lightsaber is an elegant weapon from a more civilized time. Again, well, it's civilized age, but yes, Star Wars is at its best when its legacy is honored, not subverted, not moved in a new direction. I agree. I fundamentally agree. You honor the legacy. You honor what came before, and you don't try to retcon. You don't try to change, and you don't try to make somebody more important than they truly are supposed to be. Dave Filoni. Sorry. Because the depth of what George created already has room to explore, and we have this because of the EU, dirty word right here, Legends, and how beloved that is. Agreed. The EU was the true continuation of Star Wars. George has his handprints on all of that. He had to sign off on every aspect of it. What did Disney come in to do? They retconned it and turned it Legends, and now they're pillaging it because they're out of ideas. They will go out there and take EU stories, change it around, and say, it's ours now. Thrawn? That's an EU story. Oh, but it's not canon. Oh, but it is canon. But it's not canon. Yeah, that's what they do. We know it's because even though the Old Republic has never featured on a big screen and never a television series, it had tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of loyal fans. 100%. The Old Republic video games are beloved across the board. People enjoyed those things. People were diehard supporters of those. They have fans for years and years, and they never once had a movie. They never once had a show, and people loved them nonetheless. They don't like what Disney's pointing out, but they love this. Star Wars already and always has had something for everyone. It wouldn't be the franchise it is if that weren't the case. And we have the ability to A/B test what has worked. I'd argue that Disney knows this because there are so many great things that have come out of Disney Star Wars. No, but I do think they do know that what works and what doesn't work. That's why they choose to do what doesn't work, because they want what doesn't work to actually work. And that's what hurts fans when they drop the ball and when they are called out on it. Even the talent knows the characters they poured their heart and soul into deserved better. I can agree with that. You just take a look at I'm blanking on his name. God dang it. Luke Skywalker. Mark Hamill. I'm awful with names, by the way. Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill looked at Rian Johnson and said, I don't like what you're doing to my character. He knew what was going to happen. He didn't like it, and he voiced his opinion. tons of these people know how their characters should be treated, and they don't like what's going on. They don't. They just don't. But hey, Disney Star Wars is above criticism, right? Disney Star Wars is above criticism. No. Roberto Blake here puts it out perfectly on why they are valid with their criticism. Now, I disagree with him on several points. I even let my point be told here. I disagree on the idea that Disney can make good Star Wars, and Dave Filoni is a good creator, but all around, spot on. And he responded to me. I'm kind to this guy. I think this guy is spot on most regards. I disagree with him. Guess what? He responded to me in a very kind, honorable manner. I think that they have done good Star Wars. Rebels has some of the most beloved characters in the franchise, and Clone Wars is beloved by most fans. Yeah, I can agree. But I go back to the point. I'll even just show you my response. Clone Wars wasn't done by Disney, though. And Rebels might have some beloved characters, but it began the destruction of Thrawn. Legitimately. That's 100% the truth. At the end of the day, he had valid points, tons of points that people cannot disagree with. I pointed out some of my flawed points, but at the end of the day, I think this guy's spot on. I think this guy is wonderful, and I think it fundamentally shows why everybody who's criticizing the Rey movie right now has all the right to criticize the Rey movie and criticize what Disney Star Wars has been doing. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me get your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it out, friends, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell for every time I put out a new video and go live, guys. And I'll see you all on the next one. Bye for now.